Good afternoon. My name is Kayla Bradham. I'm host of the Legacy After the Locker Room podcast. And our guest today, Darrell Jackson, former Major League Baseball pitcher for the Minnesota Twins. Good afternoon, Darrell.
Good afternoon. It's great to see you.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to have you here today, and you have quite a story. So, founder and president of the 1020 Club. From 1991, Darrell, I got to tell you, that's the year I graduated high school. So you've been doing this for a minute, huh?
Yes, I have. I missed what you had said because it froze up a little bit. But yes, since 1991, we've been doing the 1020 Club. However, we've been incorporated since 1995 officially.
That's so great. And according to your bio, Darrell, you provide outreach services for youth between the ages of 10 and 20, giving them diversion classes for kids referred by the juvenile court system, right?
Well, the court system is just one of the sources of referrals, but we also have local school districts, specifically Downey Unified School District is how the program initially started, through Downey Unified School District, which is in the southeast county of Los Angeles, southeast of Los Angeles County. And so school districts, walk-ins, and probation departments, yes. So we do have some kids in the juvenile system, but mainly they're youth who are caught on school campuses, maybe vaping or doing things they shouldn't do. In lieu of expulsions, they're asked to do a diversion class, and we provide those classes.
So I think that's very interesting, because as I speak to professional athletes and they start a foundation, it's usually because it's dear to their heart, right? So diversion is dear to your heart. I think you're very open about your own personal struggles as an athlete. Do you mind telling our audience a little bit about some of the struggles that you faced?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very open with it because that's my strength. My past has become my strength. In order to be brought into the light, there has to be darkness. And, and so I don't mind sharing the past because it's behind me. I'm living, pretty much a principled life now. So I don't have to hide anything because I live the way I live. However, diversion isn't so much close to my heart, but I'm dedicated to the youth of America, which means I've always had a love and concern for people, especially younger people. And when I went through what I went through as far as my alcoholism and drug addiction, I had to recreate myself, so to speak. And I was going into accounting and bookkeeping and credit and collections through a vocational rehab program. And the guy that became my mentor said, "Darrell, what are you doing? You should be working with youth, athletes, and recreational stuff." So I got, if you will, diverted from being accounting, bookkeeping, and credit I'm doing today. And my background is that I started drinking when I was 14. And I was undersized, and alcohol gave me the confidence to talk to girls. I had a very low self-esteem. I really felt less than. Always wanted to fit in. And when I experimented with alcohol the first time, it gave me the courage, the confidence in order to be cool and fit in with the people I was growing up with out of the city of Compton. But little did I know, if someone had gave me a crystal ball and said, after you take this first drink at 14, by the time you're 30, you're going to play Major League Baseball, wind up back here in Compton, hooked on drugs, hooked on alcohol, and go from what I like to say, the outhouse to the penthouse, back to the outhouse, I probably wouldn't have kept drinking. But drinking allowed me to fit in. It allowed me and gave me the confidence that I needed, which in a social setting. However, the biggest challenge was, can I still perform on the baseball field? And being undersized and being very, like I said, lack of confidence, alcohol gave me that false courage. And then I was told if I could handle my alcohol, that macho stuff, it made up pretty much. But I was told alcohol, if I could drink this, it'll put hair on my chest. And I can tell you right now, I don't have any hair on my chest, so it's a myth. It's not true. But it's that macho lifestyle, being tough and and that sort of thing. So I figured if I can outdrink the next guy, I was tough and I could handle it. I had no idea what the disease of alcoholism was. And in spite of those choices, in spite of being 5'9" and a half and 145 pounds, I always threw the ball hard. And I don't know where the gift came from, I guess from God. And in spite of my size, even though I was undersized, I pitched like I was 6'4", 210 pounds. When I got on the mound, I had on the field when I took the mound, I just had not too much fear. I mean, but I just went out there and loved showing off how hard I could throw a baseball. And in spite of those choices, I excelled. I was drafted out of high school at the age of 17. Dad said, no, you're not going to sign a contract. You need to go to college. So I chose a scholarship to Arizona State University. I kind of backed into the scholarship, pitching against a guy who became my good friend, Kenny Landreau, who played for the Dodgers, and they were recruiting Kenny to Arizona State, and a high school teammate of mine by the name of Eddie Murray. And I happened to be pitching against the guy they were recruiting that day, Kenny Landreau. And I did such a good job that they also offered me a scholarship. And so I graduated at 17 from Locke High School, and my shortstop on that team was Ozzie Smith, who went on to be a Hall of Famer. My first baseman was Eddie Murray, who also went on to be a Hall of Famer. So we were a very good high school baseball team out of the Los Angeles area, primarily all-black high school, all-black baseball team. In those days, African-Americans in the inner city played a lot of baseball. So I went on to Arizona State and really drank myself into the doghouse most of the time. And by the end of my eligibility, I helped the team win a national championship, and I was drafted again by the Minnesota Twins in spite of my drinking. And keep in mind, I'm violent. I'm a coward. I hit women. I mean, I was just a mess. I mean, I had this secret, but when I went on to baseball, it was my refuge. It was my safety net that kept me from getting totally out of control. It kind of maintained some control, but I was a loose cannon. And I believe God had a plan for me, because every time I made progress, I'd self-destruct and do stupid things. Like one night I struck out 15 guys against Pepperdine University, and 2 hours later I was in jail. So after the best performance of my college career, I tried to self-destruct. Well, I did self-destruct, and the Tempe police put me in jail overnight, and I sobered up and made it to the game the next day. But the coach never confronted me. But that's just one of the stories to give you an idea how crazy I was. And in spite of those choices, I was drafted again. And this time I did sign a contract. And after I signed the contract, I was assigned to Double-A for the Minnesota Twins, Orlando Twins. And my first game in professional baseball, opening night for Orlando Twins, I pitched a no-hitter in less than 9 major leagues. So I spent 10 weeks in the minors. I went from being on the brink of being out of baseball in college, a year later in the major leagues. My first game in the major leagues, I beat the Detroit Tigers. I think we beat them 5-2, and I gave up 1 run in 7 1/3 or 7 2/3 innings. And I pitched my heart out and didn't exactly feel like I belonged there, but I gave it all I had. And so it was a magical year, 1978, when I got called up, and my dream became a reality. And it was the happiest time of my life up until that point. In the major leagues after that, on and off. And eventually I got into a substance called cocaine, and the drinking, the partying, the sex, and all that stuff. And I wound up eventually, this time my luck ran out and I got injured. Eventually I was out of baseball and back in the streets of Los Angeles, drinking cheap wine and smoking crack cocaine.
So I think that's so interesting, because I think there's this image of pro athletes, like you retire, you live in a mansion, you have 6 or 7 cars, and you live happily ever after, right? Like, oh, what kind of problems do you have? What do you know? You clearly know, Darrell, you clearly know.
Well, I didn't reach the level of financial success again. And let's keep it real. Minnesota, Calvin Griffins. You're from the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area and the Milwaukee Brewers, but we're from a small market. And in those days, if you played for the Yankees or Dodgers, you may have gotten a decent contract. But the Minnesota Twins, we were underpaid players, but we had the minimum salary in the major leagues, so they had to pay at least the minimum. So financial success wasn't there, but we did have the finer things of being in the major leagues, the nice hotels and all that stuff. And again, I had an agent, which I really didn't need one. However, but yeah, a lot of guys, you figure I'm going to play Major League Baseball and live happily ever after. But it's once you get to the major leagues, that's just the beginning. Once you get there, you got to continue to work to stay there. And I had the work ethic to play Major League Baseball and to stay there. And I was a fixture in the big leagues. I could win in the big leagues. But off the field, I had this disease called alcoholism and drug addiction. And it eventually overtook me. And keep in mind, Taylor, I'm 5'9.5", 150 pounds. Their bat boys were bigger than me. And I'm playing against giants and that David and Goliath a challenge every day. But I played with them and I felt confident I pitched some really good games in the major leagues. So when I got out of baseball, that's the problem. People say you almost made it, and I bought that lie because I did make it. And I am a vested Major League Baseball player receiving a pension from Major League Baseball. And so, but I got so close to really becoming to the level of success, not like a Eddie Murray or Ozzie Smith. I don't know. I mean, what I accomplished with what I was doing and being undersized showed people that I was a very talented baseball player. I don't know where it came from, but I just could play the game of baseball. I had good baseball instincts. So in spite of all that, I left baseball, never made a lot of money, came so close. And I got into this thing called self-pity, feeling sorry for myself. I got into this thing of looking at Eddie and Ozzie and their success, looking at Ken Landreau, who went on to win a World Series with the Dodgers, watching guys that I grew up with go on and do well. And believe me, when you leave baseball, when they're playing baseball, they don't come and see you. Once you're out of the game, you're on like you're like alone on an island. And the other thing is you really don't want to see your friends because you don't want anyone to see you living the way we were living. And so I thought I was alone. But now that I've been out of the game and I watched other people who try to make the transition from baseball to regular life, I've seen them struggle. And these are people I won't mention, but these are people that did have successful careers and did make a lot of money, but they fell a lot farther down than I did. If known, if I'd have made a lot of money, I might have killed myself because, I was like, there's pigeons that they flipped and they flip and then they come out of it and they glide. But then you have these pigeons you can't let fly because they flip until they hit the ground. There's no mechanism to make them stop. So I'm like that pigeon that spirals out of control and will crash and burn. So had I made a lot of money, I don't know. But thank God that baseball isn't the only means of making a living and that you can recreate yourself. So after I overcame my in my life by the name of Dr. Ellis, and Dr. Ellis, rest in peace, is a gentleman who pitched a no-hitter. There's a documentary on Netflix about Doc pitching a no-hitter against the San Diego Padres under the influence of LSD. And I ran into him at a Pirate Dodger game, and he told me about workers' compensation and the benefits that I had since I was out of baseball. And through that process, I was put in rehab where I got treatment for my alcoholism and drug addiction. And that's when I was reborn, so to speak, and went on to put my baseball career behind me and become the man that I am. Process, and I think, yeah.
I guess I want to ask you about that, right? Like, for most people, there's some sort of pivotal story. When did you decide to get help? How, like at some point you can't do it on your own, right?
Well, I'm laughing because I didn't decide to get help. Like I said, God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. I went through drug rehab and alcohol treatment to get more money out of settlement. So my idea is that my arm isn't that shoulder wasn't hurt that bad.